Good morning, dear friends. Before you step into the noise of the day, I want you to pause with me and breathe. Today's story begins on the water, where fear rises, storms roar, and faith is tested in ways the heart never forgets. Maybe you've been walking through a season where everything feels louder than your confidence, heavier than your strength, and darker than your hope. But stay with me. As you listen to this story, you might recognize your own footsteps somewhere in it, and you may hear God whisper the same words he once spoke to a trembling disciple. Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid. Dawn unfolded slowly across the small coastal town as pale sunlight touched the water and stretched across the horizon. Lucas stood on the pier with both hands tucked into the pockets of his worn jacket, watching the waves rise and fall in a rhythm that always reminded him of breathing. Some days the ocean felt like a refuge. Other days, it looked like a reflection of the storms inside him. This morning, it felt like both. For months, Lucas had been wrestling with a quiet dread he didn't quite understand. A mix of anxiety and the heavy sense that life was shifting in ways he could not control. His job had grown unstable, his relationship with his family strained, and sleep came only in restless fragments. Even prayer felt distant, as though God stood somewhere beyond the fog, calling out through winds he couldn't decipher. He came to the water every morning hoping the waves would clear his mind. But today the air felt strange, thick and tense, the way it feels right before a storm builds. As he breathed in the crisp air, memories surfaced like echoes he hadn't invited. He remembered the gospel passage he heard the night before, the one where Peter stepped out onto the water. The story had always fascinated him. Peter wasn't perfect. He wasn't fearless. He simply had enough courage to move when Jesus called his name, and even when he sank, Jesus didn't let him go. Lucas whispered the words under his breath as though trying them on like armor. Lord, save me. His phone buzzed in his pocket, breaking the fragile stillness of the morning. He glanced at the screen. A message from his manager. Meeting at 10, we need to discuss your position. A knot tightened in his stomach. He didn't need anyone to explain what that meant. For weeks, he'd known the company was downsizing, and though he had tried to trust, fear had clawed at him nightly. He closed his eyes and let the message sink into the shifting tide of his thoughts. Losing his job would mean losing his apartment, losing stability, losing the fragile sense of direction he was trying so hard to maintain. He wanted to trust God, but God felt far away. Too far for a morning like this. Why now, he muttered. But no answer came, only the sound of water brushing the shore and the faint cry of gulls above him. He took one slow breath, then another, and finally turned away from the water. If life was a storm, then maybe this morning was only the first gust of wind. He just prayed he wouldn't drown in it. He walked home quietly, the sky shifting from silver to soft gold. Inside his apartment, he dressed for the meeting, though each movement felt mechanical. Black slacks, a clean shirt, shoes polished enough to hide the wear. He stood before the mirror for a long moment, seeing both the man he was and the boy still searching for reassurance. You'll get through this, he told his reflection, though he wasn't sure he believed himself. By 9:40, he sat in the company parking lot with hands gripping the steering wheel. His heart thudded with the same wild rhythm he had heard in the ocean waves that morning. Everything in him wanted to escape, to start the car, drive anywhere but here, avoid the ache of uncertainty. But courage isn't the absence of fear. He knew that now. He whispered again, Lord, save me, not as a plea of despair, but as a quiet confession of dependence. When he finally walked into the office, he felt the heaviness of unspoken tension. People glanced at him with a mixture of sympathy and hesitation, the way people do when they suspect something painful but don't dare to ask. His manager, Evelyn, waited inside a glass-walled conference room. She stood when he entered, her expression kind but serious. Lucas, she said softly, come sit. The room felt unbearably quiet as he took a seat across from her. Papers lay neatly stacked, and a thin folder with his name on it sat directly in front of her. He braced himself. You're one of the hardest workers we have, she began. Dedicated, reliable. But as you know, the company is restructuring. He nodded, jaw tight. I fought for you, she continued, truly. But upper management decided your position is being eliminated. The words hit him like cold water. He exhaled slowly, keeping his voice even. So, when is my last day? Evelyn hesitated. Today. Silence swallowed the room. Lucas felt the air shift, heavy and unreal. He tried to steady himself, but fear rose like a wave again. Still, amid the shock, something unexpected occurred. A strange calmness, almost like the moment right before rain begins. He remembered Peter stepping out onto the water, not because the waves were calm, but because Jesus stood there waiting for him. Evelyn reached across the table, placing a sympathetic hand over his. "Lucas, I'm so sorry." He nodded again, this time more firmly. "Thank you," he whispered, and he meant it, not because he was thankful for losing his job, but because something deeper stirred inside him, as if God was calling him to step out of the boat. The meeting ended quickly, too quickly. Within half an hour, he was carrying a cardboard box filled with the quiet remnants of a life he thought would last longer. As he walked out of the building, the world felt strangely quiet. Outside, the wind had picked up. The sky darkened. Storm clouds gathered like gray mountains overhead. The air smelled like coming rain. Lucas stood near his car, gripping the box, his breath trembling. Everything in him felt unsteady. But then, as a distant growl of thunder rolled through the sky, he whispered something he hadn't said in weeks with true sincerity. "Jesus, I trust you." The wind brushed his face like a gentle answer. He didn't know where he was going next. He didn't know how he would pay his bills. He didn't know what tomorrow held. But he knew one thing. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't sinking. Not yet. Not while Jesus remained near. Rain began to fall before Lucas even reached the highway, soft but steady, tapping against the windshield like a reminder that storms rarely wait for permission. The world outside blurred into streaks of gray, and for a moment he simply sat there, listening to the rhythm of water and letting the weight of the day settle. He expected panic. He expected anger. But instead, there was an unsettling quiet inside him, a tension between fear and faith, like a rope pulled from both ends. He drove without a destination, letting the road guide him through the town he had known his whole life. Normally, he would have called someone, a friend, his sister, maybe even his mother. But today, he didn't want any voice to drown out the whisper he was trying to hear. Something in him felt fragile, like speaking too quickly would shatter whatever peace he still held. When the rain grew heavier, he pulled into an empty overlook near the cliffs. It was a place he visited often, especially when life felt unsteady. From here, the sea looked endless, rising and falling with a strength that humbled him. He sat in the car for a few minutes before stepping out into the open air, letting the storm soak through his clothes. The wind tugged at him, sharp and salty, as if trying to strip away the pieces of life he no longer needed. He stood there drenched and trembling, staring at the wild waves churned up by the storm. And then it happened. A memory surfaced. His father taking him to this very cliff when he was a child, holding his small hand tightly as the wind roared around them. "Storms always look bigger when you're afraid," his father had said, "but they don't last forever, and you're never facing them alone." Lucas swallowed hard. His father had died when he was only 15, but those words had remained buried under years of life and noise. Hearing them again felt like hearing them for the first time. He closed his eyes and whispered, "God, I'm trying. Help me." The storm didn't stop, and the waves didn't calm. But in the middle of the chaos, he felt something shift. The faintest warmth, like a hand resting on his shoulder, steadying him. He didn't know if it was faith, memory, or imagination, but whatever it was, it softened something inside him. Eventually, he returned to his car and drove home. His apartment felt strangely empty, as though losing his job had quietly rearranged the air itself. He set the cardboard box on the kitchen counter, but he didn't unpack it. Instead, he wandered into the living room, dropped onto the couch, and let exhaustion pull him into sleep. When he woke hours later, the storm outside had passed, leaving behind a quiet darkness. His phone buzzed again, a text from his sister, Mia. "Hey, haven't heard from you. Everything okay?" He stared at the message for a long time. Mia always sensed things before he spoke them, but tonight he didn't want to burden her. Not yet. Instead, he typed, "I'm okay, just tired. Talk soon." He set the phone aside and rose from the couch, feeling the heaviness of hunger. He opened his fridge and realized he had barely enough groceries. He grabbed a can of soup and heated it on the stove. As he waited, he felt another wave of uncertainty wash over him. Not the panic from earlier, but a deeper ache. A quiet question pressed against his thoughts. What now? When he finished eating, He sat at the dining table with his hands wrapped around a cup of hot tea. Rain still dripped softly outside, tapping its steady rhythm against the window. The sound reminded him that nothing in life stayed constant, that storms, like blessings, moved on their own schedules. His thoughts drifted again to the gospel story. He imagined Peter stepping onto the water. The fear, the trembling, the shock of doing something impossible, and then sinking the moment he looked away from Jesus. Lucas whispered into the stillness, "I feel like Peter." He didn't expect an answer. He didn't get one. But the words themselves felt honest enough to lighten his chest. Later that night, as he prepared for bed, he noticed his Bible on the nightstand, unopened for days, maybe weeks. With a slow breath, he opened it and found the passage from the Gospel of Matthew again. He didn't read it quickly. He let each line fall into him like drops of water breaking through dry soil. When he reached the part where Peter cries out, "Lord, save me!" something inside him broke open. Not in pain, but in surrender. He set the Bible aside and closed his eyes. "I'm scared," he prayed softly, "but I'm trying to trust you." He fell asleep soon after, not peacefully, but in the way a weary heart does when it has finally stopped fighting the storm. Morning brought a gentle light that spilled into the apartment like a soft invitation. Lucas woke with a heaviness still present, but something else lingered too, a quiet strength that hadn't been there before. He brewed a cup of coffee and stared out the window, watching the sunlight shift across the damp rooftops. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have answers. But for the first time since yesterday, he didn't feel paralyzed. At 9 a.m., his phone rang. The caller ID showed a name he hadn't expected. Mark, an old coworker and friend. Lucas answered cautiously. "Hey?" "Man," Mark said. "I heard what happened. You okay?" Lucas hesitated. "I'm processing." "That's fair," Mark replied. "Listen, this might be a weird time, but I wanted to ask, what are your plans?" Lucas blinked. "I don't have any yet." "That's actually good," Mark said, "because my cousin is starting a small company. Marketing and digital content creation. He's looking for someone with your skill set. We were talking about you last week, actually." Lucas' heart stuttered. "Wait, seriously?" "Seriously. He asked for your portfolio. I told him I'd ask if you were open to it." Lucas pressed a hand to his forehead. Yeah, I'm open." "Good, I'll send you his email." After the call ended, Lucas stood still, gripping the phone. The timing felt too precise to be coincidence. "Lord, is this you?" he whispered. He didn't hear an audible response, but he felt it again. That same quiet warmth, the same subtle reassurance he had felt on the cliff. As he sat down to update his portfolio, he realized something important. God hadn't calmed the storm immediately. He hadn't prevented the job loss or erased the fear. Instead, he had met Lucas in the storm, step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment. And now something new, something unexpected, was opening before him. With renewed determination, Lucas opened his laptop and started typing. Not because he felt confident, but because he felt called. For the first time in a long time, faith outweighed fear. Lucas spent the rest of the morning polishing his portfolio, revisiting old projects he had almost forgotten about. As he scrolled through designs, drafts, and creative pieces he once poured himself into, he began to see something he hadn't noticed in years. He was good at what he did. Not perfect, not extraordinary in the world's eyes, but capable, creative, steady. He had forgotten that about himself somewhere in the routine of office life and quiet insecurity. Losing his job felt like a storm, but now he wondered if God was clearing space for something he never would have reached on his own. By early afternoon, he emailed his polished work to the address Mark had given him. The moment he hit send, his stomach twisted. That familiar fear whispered again, "What if you're not enough? What if this goes nowhere? What if you fail?" He closed his laptop and pressed his palms together, breathing slowly. "Jesus, help me trust." As the hours passed, the silence stretched long. No reply came, no call, no update. Each minute that ticked by felt like a test of patience, and despite his prayer, the edges of anxiety returned. He decided to go for a walk before the sunset. The rain had passed, leaving the sidewalks glistening like polished stone. He wandered through quiet streets, letting the cool air ease the tightness in his chest. The town felt strangely peaceful after yesterday's storm. Trees dripped with leftover rain, and puddles mirrored the soft glow of streetlights. Everything looked washed clean. He found himself walking toward the pier again, drawn instinctively back to the same place he had stood the morning before. The sea was calmer now, its waves gentle and rhythmic. It looked almost harmless, giving little hint of the chaos it had stirred yesterday. He stepped onto the wooden planks of the pier and leaned on the railing, watching the water move beneath him. He remembered the moment Peter stepped out of the boat, the moment he let go of safety, security, and understanding. Peter walked not because he understood how, but because he trusted who called him. Lucas whispered, "Teach me to walk like that." A breeze brushed past him, cool and almost comforting. He closed his eyes, letting the sound of waves and wind become his prayer. After a while, footsteps approached behind him. He turned to see an older fisherman he'd spoken to a few times, a man named Robert, weathered by sun and sea. His face held a wisdom shaped by storms of his own. "Evening," Robert said. "Evening," Lucas replied. "You look like you're thinking hard." Robert stood beside him, leaning on the railing. "Yeah," Lucas admitted. "A lot happened yesterday." Robert nodded as if he had expected as much. "Life tends to brew storms when you least expect them." Lucas let out a faint laugh. "You have no idea." "Maybe more than you think," Robert said quietly. "Lost my job once too. Thought it was the end of everything. Turned out it was the beginning of the best years of my life." Lucas glanced at him. "How?" "Took time," Robert said. "Took faith too. But mostly it took stepping where I couldn't see the ground." Lucas looked back toward the horizon. "That's the part I keep struggling with." Robert gave a gentle shrug. "Fear doesn't mean you lack faith. Fear means your next step matters." The words sank deep. Lucas didn't respond right away. Robert stayed a moment longer, then patted him on the back and walked away, leaving Lucas alone with his thoughts. As the sky dimmed, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out quickly, breath catching. A new email from the company Mark mentioned. His heart hammered as he opened it. "Hi Lucas, thank you for sending your portfolio. Our team reviewed your work and was impressed with your storytelling, design sense, and tone. We would like to meet you for an interview tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. if you are available." Lucas exhaled loudly, gripping the phone until his hands trembled. Relief, disbelief, gratitude. Everything flooded him at once. He stared at the glowing screen, overwhelmed. "Thank you, God," he breathed. The appointment felt like a lifeline thrown into deep water. Not a guarantee, but hope. Real, tangible hope. He hurried home with renewed energy, mind racing with possibilities. The moment he walked inside, he dropped to his knees beside his bed. "Lord, I don't know what comes next, but thank you. Thank you for not letting me sink. Thank you for this chance." A warmth spread through him, one he had felt before, but now stronger. A reassurance that he wasn't walking through this chapter alone. Morning came quickly. Lucas woke earlier than he needed to, nerves and anticipation stirring inside him like restless wind. He chose his clothes carefully, not out of vanity, but because something about today felt significant. He wanted to show up with both humility and confidence. Before leaving the apartment, he paused by the window and whispered, "Walk with me today." He didn't ask for perfection or success, only presence. The company's small office was located in a renovated warehouse near the water. It had exposed brick walls, warm lights, and the faint smell of roasted coffee drifting from a nearby cafe. Lucas entered, greeted by a receptionist who smiled warmly and directed him to a waiting area. He sat there, hands folded tightly, trying to keep his breathing steady. Within minutes, a man in his mid-30s stepped out of a glass door and approached him with a friendly smile. "Lucas, I'm Daniel," he said. "Thanks for coming in." Lucas stood and shook his hand. Daniel led him into a small meeting room, bright and open, with a large window overlooking the docks. The interview began with simple questions: his work, his background, his creative process. But before long, the conversation shifted from skills to vision. Daniel leaned forward. "I'm going to be honest," he said. "We're not looking for someone who just makes content. We want someone who understands meaning, someone who creates things that move people." Lucas felt something stir in him. "That's what I want too," he said softly, "to make work that matters." Daniel nodded. "I could feel that in your portfolio and in the way you describe your approach." For the first time in a long time, Lucas felt seen, not in the shallow professional sense, but in the deeper way people recognize purpose in one another. After nearly an hour, the interview wrapped up. Daniel stood and smiled again. We'll discuss everything tonight. Expect an answer soon. Lucas thanked him and left the building feeling weightless. As he walked along the pier outside, sunlight sparkled across the water. Boats rocked gently in the harbor, and the world felt strangely aligned, as though every step had led him to this moment. He paused beside the railing, watching the waves shimmer under the morning light. And in the quietness of that moment, he felt a whisper within him. "Keep your eyes on me." He nodded silently, tears gathering unexpectedly. "I will," he whispered. For the first time since the storm began, peace settled fully, not because his future was secure, but because his faith was. The storm hadn't ended his story. It had redirected it. The rest of the day stretched out slowly, but instead of anxiety, Lucas felt an unusual stillness within him, like the calm of the sea after a long storm. He spent the afternoon helping Mark organize the shop, sweeping floors, carrying new stock to the back room, and talking with regular customers. It wasn't glamorous work, but it grounded him. Between tasks, Mark checked on him with a grin, not asking for updates, just making sure he was doing okay. Somehow that meant more than words. Evening settled in with a soft golden glow over the harbor. Lucas walked home, feeling the crisp air brushing against his skin. He could feel the weight of uncertainty trailing behind him still, but it no longer clung to him like fear. It felt more like the natural unknown, something you learn to coexist with when you believe someone greater than you is guiding your path. As he reached his apartment, his phone buzzed. His heart stumbled. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar number. His breath tightened. This was it. He answered with a quiet, "Hello." "Hi, Lucas, it's Daniel." His voice sounded warm, steady. Lucas gripped the edge of the table to keep his hand from shaking. "Hi, good to hear from you." "I'll get right to it, Paushwani," Daniel said. "After looking over everything and speaking with the team, we'd like to offer you the position." Lucas closed his eyes, head lowering, as a wave of emotion crashed through him. "Really?" he breathed. "Yes," Daniel said. "We believe you would fit beautifully with what we're building. And if you're willing, we'd love to have you start next Monday." Tears stung his eyes before he could stop them. Yes, I'd love that. Thank you, truly." "Welcome aboard, Lucas," Daniel replied. "We'll send the official documents tonight." When the call ended, Lucas sat in silence. A grateful, trembling silence. His hands covered his face as the tears finally came. Not tears of fear, but tears of relief, gratitude, and awe. The storm had tossed him hard, but God had not abandoned him. He had walked with him over the waves. When he finally stood, there was a quiet smile on his face. The first genuine, unburdened smile in days. He opened his window and let the evening air fill the room, breathing in deeply as though taking in a new beginning. The next morning he returned to the pier, wanting one final moment of reflection before stepping into the future awaiting him. The sun was rising slowly, painting the water with pale streaks of gold. He leaned on the railing and watched the light move across the surface, gentle and sure. He whispered softly, "Thank you, Lord, for not letting me sink." As he stared at the waves, memories from the past week washed through him. The sudden job loss, the fear, the storm, the prayers whispered into the dark, the quiet voice reminding him not to fear, the unexpected opportunity, and now this open door. He realized something profound. Faith wasn't about avoiding storms. It was about learning where to look when storms came. And he had learned painfully, beautifully, that when he looked at the waves, he sank. But when he looked at God, he walked. The sounds of footsteps approached behind him, and he turned to see Mark walking toward him with 2 cups of coffee. "You beat me here," Mark said, handing him one. "I had a lot on my mind," Lucas replied. "Good things, I hope." Lucas nodded. "Yeah, really good things." They stood side by side, sipping coffee as the sea breeze tugged at their sleeves. After a moment, Lucas said quietly, "You know, I think losing my job might be the best thing that ever happened to me." Mark smiled. "Funny how God works sometimes." "I thought the storm was drowning me," Lucas said, "but it was actually saving me. I just didn't see it from where I was." Mark chuckled softly. "Storms rarely look like blessings at the start." "True," Lucas said, "but I'm grateful for it now." They watched the morning unfold together, and Lucas felt a peace he didn't know was possible. Not because everything in his life was perfect, but because he finally understood that his worth didn't depend on circumstances. God had held him in the storm, redirected his path, and restored hope where fear once stood. As the sun rose higher, Lucas knew he was ready. Ready to begin again. Ready to step into something new. Ready to walk forward without letting fear dictate his steps. Later that afternoon, he cleaned his apartment, organized his workspace, and prepared small steps for the days ahead. He bought a journal and wrote, "For the first time in years, today I learned that faith is not about understanding, but about trusting. When I look at the waves, I panic. When I look at God, I find peace." He closed the journal and whispered, "Help me remember this." The weekend came and went peacefully. On Monday morning, he dressed in the same clothes he had chosen for the interview, a small reminder of the journey that led him here. As he stepped outside, the sky was clear, and the world felt wide with possibility. He made his way to the office, entered through the glass doors, and was greeted by warm smiles from the team. It felt right. Not perfect, not easy, but right. A place where he could grow, contribute, and build something meaningful. As he settled into his new desk, he looked out the window toward the distant harbor. He imagined the waves rolling gently, the same waves that had once frightened him. But now they felt different. Not dangerous, but beautiful. Not overwhelming, but steady. A reminder of the God who had carried him through the tempest. He whispered quietly, "I'm ready." And for the first time in a long time, he truly meant it. Reflection. Life lesson. Storms will always come. Some will shake us, some will break us, and some will force us into waters we never wanted to face. But the storms that scare us most are often the ones that shape us most. They strip away illusions of control and remind us that we are held by a God who never sinks, never sleeps, and never lets go. Faith is not proven on calm waters. Faith is proven the moment we step out of the boat, trembling, whispering, "Lord, save me," and trusting that His hand will always reach us in time. If this story brought peace or clarity to your heart today, please like, share, subscribe, and comment to help others find comfort and strength in their own storms. You are not alone. God is with you.